I've realized that you can easily track my mood by tracking my weight. When I'm between 200 and 210 pounds, things are usually very good. I mean, I'm putting real effort into staying healthy, and it also means I'm in a good emotional place. When I'm between 210 and 215 pounds, it might just be holiday weight. Life is okay. I could be doing more. I'm usually just not putting in much effort. But when I get over 220 pounds, I know there's a problem. I've always struggled with stress eating, although I did not fully recognize this until a few years after college, when I started my first professional job. At its worst, I weighed 240 pounds, and my doctor sent me to a liver specialist because my blood test showed that I had developed a fatty liver, which was confirmed by the specialist. This happened right after I graduated college, and it made me realize how serious my situation had become. I was angry at myself for letting my health get so out of control, especially because I had always seen myself as an athletic person, and this felt like the total opposite of the identity I wanted to have. After leaving college, I lost about 20 pounds fairly easily because I no longer had unlimited access to food. However, my habits didn't really change. I lived at home for a couple of years while I looked for a job and tried to save money. During that time, I continued overeating because I was stressed about not having a job and the jobs that didn't work out, and stressed about the jobs that I eventually did get. My parents even pointed out my overeating, suggested starting a diet, and trying to do different things to motivate me to exercise more. But I ignored them because eating made me feel good. I wasn't against exercising or eating better, but I still didn't fully understand that I had a problem or what were the reasons why I was eating so much. I finally made some progress when I moved out after getting a more stable job. Having my own space gave me more control over my food choices. Around that time, I also discovered some adult sports that I could participate in. I had really taken after skateboarding, which I had learned from one of my roommates in college. There was a local place that had adult gymnastics night, and eventually ballroom dancing became the sport that really took the most, and that motivated me to lose weight more significantly. At times I dropped all the way down to 205 pounds for dance contests, which was the best weight I had ever achieved as an adult. Keeping that weight was difficult though. Once the contest was over, I didn't really have any motivation to continue eating that little or exercising that hard. Only recently have I fully identified my coping mechanism as stress eating. It lines up with the negative feelings I had in college when I could not participate in sports at the level I wanted. I had played many sports in high school and considered myself an athlete, but I wasn't good enough to continue them in college. Club sports didn't fill the gap because I was chasing the identity more than the activity itself, and this identity crisis continued long after graduation, and it's still only partially resolved. During college, my depression combined with having unlimited access to food made things even worse. My parents paid for my meal plan, and the cafeteria was always open. I drank large cups of soda and milk with every meal, and I would eat multiple plates of food. I was probably eating the equivalent of 5 to 6 meals a day. It kept me happy enough to get by, but looking back, my academic performance was poor. It certainly showed in my final GPA, and I almost didn't graduate on time. I mostly pushed through because I didn't want to disappoint my parents. After college, finding a job related to my degree was harder than I expected. I sent out hundreds of resumes and got very few responses. I was also limiting myself by refusing to move away from my hometown. Eventually, I did get a job, but it was extremely boring. I didn't socialize well, my commute was long, I would work too fast and run out of things to do. Every day, I drove home as fast as I possibly could just so I could watch TV and eat, which made me feel better in the moment, but it didn't fix anything for the long term. During this time, I managed to gain back some of the weight. Later, I left that job for another one in a different town and was eventually fired for poor performance. After months of searching, I got a job in my hometown again. This time I moved into an apartment with a friend, and that extra independence improved my mood and my eating habits. Even though I didn't like my job, I did it well enough to keep my apartment, and I rediscovered my appreciation for exercise. I found new activities that made me feel like an athlete again, and over about 2 years, I lost all of the weight that I had gained during college and then regained after my first job. Eventually, I discovered ballroom dancing, which gave me the strongest sense of being an athlete again. It motivated me to exercise regularly and improve my diet. However, this motivation only lasted during competition seasons. When competitions ended, I often fell back into overeating and inactivity, especially when work became stressful. One of the worst temptations is the candy available at my office. When I get stressed, I eat large amounts of it just to get through the day. Then during my long commute home, the good feeling disappears and I end up miserable again. My job isn't naturally stressful, but it's become that way because I've become the person that everyone relies on to fix their emergencies. And so, to the managers, they get to solve their emergency and move on. But I have to continue moving from this person's emergency to this person's emergency to this person's emergency. And I always feel like I'm responsible if it winds up not getting done on time. To break this cycle, I can try having a less stressful job, shortening my commute, or developing a stronger internal motivation to exercise even when I'm tired. I'm still working on these solutions. I'm about to earn a professional license that would let me switch jobs more easily, and I could afford to move closer. The downside is that moving might distance me from the activities I enjoy. Right now, I'm not sure if that trade-off is worth it. One of my biggest ongoing struggles is that I overeat whenever food is provided for me, at parties, at work, or whenever a friend just brings snacks over. I eat as if the food will never be available again. I'm not sure if justified or entitled is the right word to describe why I feel the need to eat so much, but the behavior is definitely gluttonous. Unfortunately, this is not a job where I can work remote all the time, so I will need to come up with a way to convince myself that I don't need to eat that much, even though it's available to me. A compromise could be making my own healthy snacks to eat instead. Eventually, I know I will need to be able to ignore this craving entirely. I know this is something that I will have to contend with for the rest of my life, but I think recognizing and talking about it will go a long way towards mitigating the issue. I understand that this isn't as severe of a case of an eating disorder as I'm sure many other people have, but I think it is still important to talk about and for other people to know that just because it hasn't sent them to the hospital doesn't mean it's not something they should recognize and try to take steps to fix. Thank you for listening.